Some shows talk about one team. Other shows barely talk sports. This show will talk Packers, Brewers, and Bucks every day. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily with Steve Sparky Fifer, served up by Wendy's on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. Download the Wendy's app today.
Welcome in. It is Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's, as always. Had Wendy's last night. My goodness. Couple double stacks had. And you know what I realized this morning was my Frosty is still sitting in my freezer at home. It's still in the freezer.
Not a bad thing, Sparky.
No, it's not. But the texture of the Frosty changes when you put it in the freezer. So like if you get the Frosty straight and you eat it in the car, that's one texture. If you put it in the freezer, then the texture changes into something else. I like both. Doesn't matter to me. I was just mad at myself driving into work this morning like, holy crap, how did I not have my Frosty when I was all done? I was eating. It was late at night. I was working on my computer, and I just totally forgot about it and went to bed at like 11:30. Just totally forgot that I didn't have it because I didn't have the double stacks until 10:15, 10:30. I had dinner last night, something like that.
Even though it changes a little bit, the flavor is still so there and delicious.
Yes,
and you have it for tonight now. So there you go.
And I went old school, just generic chocolate Frosty. I didn't get the fusion or the swirl. I just went old school. The family was like, let's go old school Frosty. So I said, fine. So we each got a Frosty, and I'm the only idiot that obviously didn't have a Frosty. So it's unfortunate for me. Okay, coming up on today's show, Ross Uglem, Packer Report, will join us coming up here at 2:40 and get his thoughts on what he saw in that Packer-Arizona Cardinal game. Plus, we'll dive into the Milwaukee Brewers throughout the show. Each hour, there will be at least one Brewer segment that we'll discuss some Brewers baseball with you. Badger football. I'll be honest, I didn't intend to talk Badger football at all today. That was not on my radar last night. Yes, they suck. We all know they suck. Fine. No need to dive into that on a Monday after Packers and the Brewers season ending. And then Chris McIntosh sent out a letter to everybody. So now we got to talk about whether or not we're actually buying what Chris McIntosh is trying to sell this fan base for the Wisconsin Badgers. We'll do that coming up at the top of the 3 o'clock hour. So I'm looking forward to all of this. This game yesterday, Packers and Cardinals. We did the Green Bay football postgame show last night on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network, as always. And Tommy Wirtz and myself. And we asked the question, are you more mad or happy about the fact that they won? And there were some people who were like, Spark, you know how hard it is to win the NFL? Like, you have to be happy. A win is a win. Even though it may have been ugly and it may not have went the way you wanted, a win is a win. I get down with you on that. A win is a win. I told Charlie on Friday, you predicted 23, right? Or 24?
24. I was one away.
24. And the final was 27-23. And I said, oh my God, if they score that many points, I'm going to be hot. And I was hot. Because this, again, was a situation where that Arizona offense should not have scored that many points with a backup quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. That should just never have happened. Bam night. Right. Yeah. How many sports bars are on here do you think could have told me anything about Bam night prior to that Cardinals game yesterday? Not many. If you're a big college football draft guy, you know who Bam night is. Outside of that, normal people walking the streets have no idea who Bam night is. He's running against this Packers defense. Now, at the end of the day, what did it come down to? It came down to this dude right here being Superman.
Brissett on third down. He is wrapped up, and down he goes. It's Parsons.
Just take a look at the coverage. You're going to watch all of these guys as they match up, and as soon as they match up, look at their eyes, all staring at the quarterback. They're plastering their receivers, and of course, if you're going to sit there and pat the ball like Brissett, you have no chance against Micah Parsons. They left him one-on-one with Paris Johnson, and it's just a matter of time. His relentless effort is going to get there and get the sack.
Highlight courtesy of Fox. First of all, I'm not an NFL head coach. I say that all the time. I'm not a coordinator. I'm not a position coach. I don't know as much as these guys all know. But I'm not stupid either. At what point do you decide, you know what, we're not playing one-on-one against this dude? At what point do you decide it's just not happening? It would be like saying, you know what? We're not going to run two guys at Giannis. We're not going to help the guy that's defending Giannis. Let's just put the guy defending Giannis out on an island and see what happens. Giannis is going to drop 50 or 60. That's what's going to happen. You can't do that. You can't put a guy out there. And I understand Paris Johnson, good college football player, all that. He ain't stopping Micah Parsons throughout an entire game. Nobody on that offensive line is. And for that matter, there aren't, I don't know, there's probably less than 3 in the NFL that could probably stop Micah Parsons one-on-one for an entire football game without him getting to the quarterback, Charlie. That was some bonehead coaching if I've ever seen it by the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And I was saying this last week, and I was saying it to people this weekend at the brewery when I was working there, and they were talking to me about the game. It just feels like this Arizona Cardinals team is very talented, but they do not mesh well with the system that Jonathan Gannon is trying to run. And it feels like Jonathan Gannon is a good head coach. You saw moments in this game where that defense for the Cardinals looked a lot better than the really young, really unfocused defense I think you see sometimes out of Arizona. And in this game, you saw the epitome of what their season has been so far, where they just don't mesh well. A good coach and a good team are just not running each other's systems to the T. And that happens when you have organizations like Arizona who have been so close in the past, who get dedicated to players like Kyler Murray and start building teams around that, when that obviously is not the move here. I think this is all just, like you said, a show of bad coaching and a bad front office trying to make something out of nothing here.
Then we have Micah Parsons and another guy, again, he got dinged up in this game, but another guy that's played really well this year, they combined on getting a sack.
Second down and 15. Brissett in trouble, and he is sacked. Parsons once again along with Quay Walker. And that takes us to the 2-minute warning.
That was a huge sack. It was a huge sack by the Green Bay Packers in this one. Huge sack. Now, when we talk about what's going right in that game specifically yesterday, was Micah Parsons. It's Quay Walker led the team in tackles, had a sack and a half. Micah Parsons had 3 sacks in the game. So those two guys balling up. Then, not only did you have those two guys doing something, you had another contributor, finally, show up. Now, I'm not sure when we'll see this guy again, but he showed up for this play.
Cardinals gain 21 yards on the penalty. New set of downs as Brissett has the ball knocked loose. It's recovered by the Packers.
All right, let's take a look at Brissett. He steps up.
Rashawn Gary knocks it loose.
Yep, it was a fumble. Rashawn Gary, the big play. I talked about this last night. Micah Parsons can be that guy, right? He can be that guy. But you need a bunch of Robins to that Batman. It can't just be him and Quay sometimes. It's got to be him and a host of others. Evan Williams had a couple moments in that game, right? Had a couple moments. Who did not have any moments in this game? The cornerbacks. They did not have any moments in this game. And there was a lot of dislike going on yesterday on the post-game show here on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network after every Packer game about Nate Hobbs being horrible. I was one of them. Nate Hobbs wasn't very good, right? I think we were all in line and on board with Nate Hobbs not being very good. I got some news. They both sucked. Wendell Ferreira tweeted this out. Passer rating when targeted versus the Cardinals yesterday. Keyshawn Nixon. Brissett had a passer rating of 116.7 throwing at Keyshawn Nixon. Throwing at Nate Hobbs, 109.7. When Jair Alexander went stage left, and you side Micah Parsons, what was the conversation? The conversation was, hey, no biggie. Keyshawn Nixon's got better. He's better than we thought he was going to be last year. He looks like he might be able to handle that position. You signed Nate Hobbs in the offseason. Goody was high on him. Carrington Valentine, we'll see. That hasn't looked so good so far. And now Hobbs here the last 2 weeks finally gets healthy. Hasn't looked good there either. And then I see Nate Hobbs after the game. Well, you know, my old defensive coordinator told me it was a matter of inches. Yeah, well, matter of feet for you, son. It was not a matter of inches. It was a matter of feet in certain situations, not inches for Nate Hobbs in this one. They have to figure out how they're going to address that position. I mean, you can come at me with, oh, they're going to coach them up and they'll be better. Okay, maybe. But when you go all in, you push chips in for Micah Parsons. You push chips in to be a Super Bowl team. That's what that was. That's why you did that deal. You cannot allow that quarterback position to sit as is without not attempting to do something here at the trade deadline. You don't have to give up a 1 for a veteran cornerback in this league. You can give up a 4, a 5, a 3, not even a 3 probably, a 4 or a 5, and get somebody that at least can come in there and stop the bleeding in games when things are going sideways, like it was in this game against the backup quarterback. The question is this. Does it feel like the Packers are one of the best teams in the NFC to you? Because they're sitting here on top of the division, right? 4-1-1. Top team in the NFC North as we sit here today. Does it feel like they're one of the best teams in the NFC to you right now as we sit here today? Nicolay Law, talk a text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250. Socials at WI Sports Radio, Instagram, Twitter. Come find us on YouTube. We're live streaming this bad boy on YouTube as well. WI Sports Radio. Come play along. Comment in the comment section. The dugout. Anton's already in there. I haven't seen that one. I haven't read that one yet. And again, Nicolay Law Talk and Text Line. As I always say, I prefer to talk to you on the telephone. I will gladly read your text, but I like the interaction, the back and forth. We can go point or counterpoint. A lot harder to do that via the text. 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250. Charlie, what does it feel like to you with this Packers team?
I feel like this team is a top contender in the NFC, but not because of the way they're playing. More so the rest of the NFC doesn't really excite me all that much. If I'm looking at the way the Philadelphia Eagles have played so far, they don't feel like the same Philadelphia Eagles team we saw last season. The best team in the NFC right now is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they just feel like they're 1 to 2 more injuries from falling apart this season just because they've dealt with so many so far. And I know a lot of these guys are going to come back at some point, but that just feels like a team that doesn't have that ceiling of a Super Bowl team, a really good playoff team, but it just doesn't feel like that. And that may change. They're a team that has experience, can go out there and play, but it just doesn't feel like they've separated themselves from the Packers like that. The Lions don't look like the same team as last year. I mean, nobody really looks like the same team each week. It feels like everybody's going in and it's a brand new set of 32 teams going out there and playing football every week. It's kind of crazy. So because of that, yes, the Packers do feel like that because on paper, their roster, when they are fully healthy, look phenomenal. And right now they are not fully healthy, and they're going out there playing with a semi-depleted wide receiver group. 2 of their top players in that wide receiver room aren't playing out there, but it still feels like their offense is able to at least play a safe style of football that gets them scores and gets them wins. Their defense is playing at the top of the league. It feels like Micah Parsons is going out there and could single-handedly win a lot of these games for the Green Bay Packers, despite the defensive backs maybe not playing their best. And that's not even a downside for the defensive backs because Xavier McKinney was phenomenal this week. You had other players out there just looking like they're able to pick up the slack when guys like Nate Hobbs don't look good or is injured, is not playing here. It just feels like this team has all the pieces. They need to take that next step and separate themselves from the pack now.
It's something where, and I agree with you, when you start talking about the rest of the NFC doesn't look that great either, right? There doesn't appear to be a dominant team as we sit right now in the NFC. Washington is banged up with Jaden Daniels. He has a hamstring issue, waiting to see how bad that is. They haven't looked as good. Dak Prescott throws for 1,000,000 yards, but their defense isn't that good. So not really there on the Cowboys at this point. Giants appear better, but they're still not a contender in the NFC at this point.
The Bears look a little better.
Bears have won 4 in a row, and their next 2 games aren't against good opponents either.
But they've also played some bad teams. So they may get 6 wins this season just against bad teams, which is going to make them look better. But people that watch those games know Caleb Williams didn't play all that great. The defense had spurts moments in that game where they didn't look good against a bad offense. I mean, nobody looks good.
I think you start looking at some of these other teams. Stafford and the Rams have shown they can play pretty good. They showed it again against Jacksonville.
Their defense has lapses sometimes.
It absolutely does. But when you have Stafford and Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, if everybody can stay healthy there, that they're going to be a problem at some point, probably in the playoffs. Now, can they? That's Stafford and Devontae, older guys. So we could see if they can stay healthy throughout the season. Tampa Bay, all that was made about Tampa Bay. I'm not there on the Buccaneers. I'm not sold on the Buccaneers. And then obviously in this division, it's Jared Goff and the Lions. But again, there's been moments you're like, oh yeah, this Lions team is really good. And then there's other moments when they play different teams, you're like, okay, they're not as good as we thought they were, right? Against Baltimore, maybe not as good. Against the Packers, okay, maybe not as good. And then when they get going against a bad team, you're like, oh, the offense is cooking, and here we go again. That's what, as a Packer fan, you and I should feel better about things. No, is this Packers team perfect? No, it's not perfect. Are there things that need to be addressed and fixed on this Packers team? Absolutely. Will they be? We'll see. There were a lot of you that were all over Matt LaFleur in the first half of that game for not doing correct play calling, screwing this whole thing up. This offense is a mess, so forth. They put up 27 points. 27 points in all 4 victories. That's a lot of points by NFL standards. Dropped 27 4 times in a season. So while you may say his play calling isn't that good, you're going to have a hard time selling anybody else on that when you look at final numbers and final points. And this defense isn't scoring. They ain't got pick sixes. You don't have big defensive linemen rumbling with the ball and a fumble recovery. None of that stuff is happening in Green Bay. Everything that's occurring is because these guys are having to drive the ball down the field and score because the defense ain't getting turnovers, Charlie.
And that's what you need from this defense right now. That's what you got from this defense early in the season last year under that first year of Jeff Hafley. But also, this is something that a lot of people warned may happen with this Packers defense going into this season. It's something you saw, and I bring this up a lot with the Bears back in 2016 when they had that crazy defense that was just getting turnovers left and right when they first traded for Khalil Mack. And they came back the next year, and Eddie Jackson didn't look like the same player at safety because he wasn't turning over the ball as much. Kyle Fuller was not getting the same kind of interceptions he was when he was turning the ball over as much. You look at Dallas just this season, Deron Bland is nowhere to be found on that Dallas defense, and he was not very good even when he's been on the field playing and healthy. Trevon Diggs is the same way with them. So a lot of these guys have that 1 year, but if an offense or a team has a chance to figure you out, you have to learn how to adapt as well. And right now it looks like sometimes the Packers defense is not adapting as well as you would hope they would, but it's also very frustrating because sometimes they do. Sometimes you do see Jeff Hafley go out there and make something creative happen with the players that he has on the field. I think yesterday we saw a lot of guys in that defensive tackle room show out and play a lot better than they had been since Devontae Wyatt has been out. You can expect changes like that, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. And you have to question Jeff Hafley and Matt LaFleur on why that's not happening.
Hey, you can win big this October at Potawatomi. Play the Bird Bash game show for $50,000 in cash. Just play with your Potawatomi rewards card for entries. Prize drawings on Thursdays. Plus, your play also earns you a shot at the $300,000 December season finale. It's a Bird Bash. Only at Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee. For more details, visit paysbig.com/Bird Bash. Coming up next, we switch gears to the Milwaukee Brewers. We'll talk more about the Packers with Ross Uglem, publisher of the Packer Report, coming up here in about 20 minutes. We got to talk about the Brewer season ending, Brewer season wrapping up. You know what I've heard a lot of? I've heard a lot of, from Pat Murphy specifically, nobody picked us to do anything. Nobody out there picked us to win more than, what did he say, 81 games or something like that, I believe is what Murphy said. Well, that's a lie because I went back and I looked and I knew that was BS. But either way, so I went back. I printed out a bunch of stuff from the preseason predictions. So we'll get into that. But the question that I have, because y'all hate the national media, right? Everybody hates the national media. Do you, as a Brewer fan, view this team any different than the national media? Do you, though? I mean, if you sit back and you think about it, do you really view it any differently than they do? We'll discuss that coming up next. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky here. All right, welcome back. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's. Steve Sparky Fifer with you. Charlie using the other side of the glass. So Ross Uglem will join us, talk more about the Packers. Publisher of Packer Report comes up here in about 14 minutes or so, 15 minutes. Talk more about the game, get his thoughts on what he saw yesterday. But I want to talk about these expectations that Brewers fans and the national media have been talking about, and mainly Pat Murphy. So Pat Murphy keeps telling everybody, nobody picked us. Nobody picked us. Okay. So let's go back and let's see if anybody picked you. So Keith Law of The Athletic predicted the Cubs to be 88-74, the Milwaukee Brewers to be 84-78. He says, I'll predict the Brewers miss the playoffs, and they'll probably make the playoffs again. In my defense, teams that rely on defense are a little harder to predict, at least in my experience of making errant predictions. I'm thrilled that they're putting Joey Ortiz, a plus defender, at short as a natural position to take Willie Adames' spot. I'm less thrilled that they may be punting on third base. I'm more concerned about the rotation than the lineup, though. They've pulled some good starters out of some very small hats in recent years, and while I believe they're good at getting the most out of certain types of starters, their margin for error keeps shrinking. So that was Keith Law of The Athletic, 84-78, second place. Let's see. This one is from CBS Sports, in which everybody but one predicted the Brewers in second place again behind the Cubs. Anderson says, clearly I'm dumb enough to again doubt the Brewers. I think they're much closer to the Cubs than the projection models say, if that's worth anything to the Milwaukee residents reading along. Frankly, I struggle with the third through fifth place rankings here. The Reds and Pirates would seem to have more upside and momentum going for them, but the upshot of the Cardinals' inactive winter is that they have most of an 83-win team back. That could help them have a surprisingly good year. Let's see. Another one, Axia. I never say this guy's name right. Axisa. I never say it right. We've never had him on either.
Axia?
I never say it right. It never.
Also, I found that clip. It was in the wrong days folder.
Good. So you have it?
I do have it.
Okay. It says, you'd think I would have learned to stop betting against the Brewers by now, but nope. Consider this a good omen, Brewers fans. I like the Cubs on paper, especially now that they have a bona fide star in Kyle Tucker. He's the kind of player who can change the balance of power in a division race. But he has the Brewers in second, and that is fine. No big deal. Feldman says the Cubs had a good offseason, primarily for adding Tucker, while the Brewers' most notable move was shipping off Devin Williams. Is that enough to reverse their standings? Check back in September. And obviously, it wasn't at that point. Let's see here. Another one here on the Brewers. It would be foolish at this point to bet against the Brewers from Matt Snyder, which is why they found their way to second. But again, he also took the Cubs. So while people are still taking the Cubs to win the division, I'm not seeing anybody saying that the Brewers are going to suck by any stretch of the imagination. Projection Rector. Now, maybe this is where he went. Maybe ESPN's standings is what Murphy looked at to justify his nobody has him picked to win 81 or more than 81 games. They had him predicted to go 80-82 at this point. And they have one realistic bold prediction, and they talk about Churio MVP in that conversation for a bold prediction. How can they be an October threat? The Brewers need more of what Christian Yelich displayed before season-ending back surgery, which they got, just not in playoffs. But they also need to adequately replace the stars who departed. That means Joey Ortiz. Adames' replacement at short needs to take a step forward in his age 26 season. Trevor McGill will have to step up in a closer's role once held by Williams, and they were in their tier 3 of teams put out by those guys. Now, we also have Mark Antanasio before the season as well. And Charlie and I were looking to dig this up. Now, this is the actual owner of the Milwaukee Brewers, okay? On the owner of the Brewers. And this is what he had to say about the Milwaukee Brewers.
We said this last year. We came in and everybody said we were going to do. I think last year people were going to be in last place. Good. Look, I prefer that. Frankly, I'm get concerned that there may be more expectancy this year. There was no pressure on us last year.
So if you couldn't hear him, he said he prefers there not be any expectations on this team. He prefers they get picked for being last place. This year, he said in spring training that now this year there's going to be some pressure on us this year because there's some expectations on us. That's the owner of the baseball team saying that there were expectations on this team to win and that he wasn't really a big fan of it. He likes being under the radar team. So the owner himself didn't think this was an under the radar team coming into the season. That's the owner. You know, lots of summer and fun. That's what he's supposed to bring you every year, right? Lots of fun summers, which he provided this year. This team was a lot of fun to watch throughout the year. Here's my question. Do you, as a Brewer fan, if you think about it, view this team, this Brewers team, any differently than the national media does? Do you? How many of you, prior to the season, were telling your friends they're going to the World Series? How many of you, after the Yankees series, said they're going to be in the NLCS? How many of you thought they were going to win more than 95 games this year? Now, I realized before the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network started that we were just on in Milwaukee, on the Fan in Milwaukee, and it was just Charlie and I doing our show, and we had a couple other shows as well. So the listening audience obviously clearly wasn't as big back in last March as it is now. But when he said that, I lost my mind. We took calls, we took predictions, tweets, all that stuff. Nobody predicted them going to the World Series. Nobody predicted them winning more than 95 games. I didn't see expectations of this from anybody. I have friends, believe it or not. Some of you may not believe it. None of them thought they were going to go to a World Series and win a World Series. Nobody. Charlie works in a brewery, for God's sakes, as a second job. Charlie wasn't coming here. Oh, man, you wouldn't believe all the people thinking the Brewers are going to the World Series this year. I didn't hear any of that. Not from anybody. But we want to get in the national media because, well, they didn't predict the Brewers to go to the World Series. Oh, we're the underdogs. You're no more the underdogs with them as you are with your own fan base. Now, we may have predicted the Brewers to beat the Cubs in the division. Okay, fine. That probably happened. But nobody saw them going to a World Series this year before the season started. Be honest with yourself at this point. Tell me if I'm wrong. Nicolay Law, talking text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250. Find us on the socials at WI Sports Radio. Stream us as well at WI Sports Radio on YouTube. Charlie, we any different really than the national media when it comes to how we view this baseball team?
No, but also I don't blame the fan base for not being any different. Where do you get your main takes from? Us and the national media.
Sure.
That's what it is. That's who you're listening to. That's who you're basing all of your knowledge off of. I mean, it's hard not to have that thought process when everybody else is telling you that's the thought process to have.
This is the thing. This is why I don't like that take. I don't like that take because it makes it seem like we all can make up our own minds. That we're all a bunch of sheep just regurgitating whatever we see on TV or whatever we hear on the radio. There are plenty of you that listen on a day-to-day basis to sports talk radio or watch it on TV that are as smart as I am. Plenty of you that are smarter than I am. I just am the blessed one that gets to talk into a microphone. That's the only difference. Plenty of you smarter than me. Plenty of you smarter than Charlie, right? You all can form your own opinion. You don't just have to regurgitate whatever you hear and have your own take. But even at that point, I still didn't see or hear anybody talking about this team going and doing some great things. Nicolay Law, talking text line 414-677-1250. Ken in Menominee Falls, you're first up. Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's. What's up, Ken?
Sparky, how are you?
Doing good.
I actually, fortunately for me, I was actually at spring training. I took another group, a good friend of ours, sponsored them in spring training. Got to see a number of different things when we were out there for a week. The digital assets that they have when we did our early season predictions, I did predict over 95 win. I said 95 plus. I did predict they'd win the NL Central. I also predicted they would win the pennant and go to the World Series. And our good friend Tim Allen said, I don't know about that, but they have the digital assets now. Some of the things that we were seeing in spring training were pretty interesting, especially the day when they signed Quintana. I happen to have the good fortune to be within like 15 feet of the GM. And we had an interesting conversation as we were watching the minor league team scrimmage. And with that being said, I said, you seem pretty animated over there, Mr. Arnold. What's going on? And he goes, I just signed Jose Quintana. Here's my point. The one thing that this group has done under Antanasio is they're not afraid to go out and make acquisitions. Now, people will complain about that all the time and go, well, they don't make enough of them or they don't make the ones that people want. But they go out and they make some pretty decent acquisitions. So with that being said, I was pretty fired up for what I've seen as well in spring training with a lot of the guys and their enthusiasm. So was it all smoke and mirrors to some degree? You know, when you first see guys at spring training, yeah, you try to get a feel for how they feel, how the team feels, and so on and so forth. But based upon what they did the previous year and the years before that,
Ken,
I like this team intact under Pat Murphy.
Ken, you listen to a lot of sports talk radio. You call into sports talk radio. You've been around sports talk radio a long time. How many people prior to the season did you hear calling to sports talk radio thinking this team had a chance to go to a World Series?
None.
Not one. That's my point. Thanks for the call. That's all I'm saying. We're no different than them. Yeah, we may think they're better than the Cubs. Fine, I'm with you. Okay, cool. We got that. But how many of us thought they were going to get past the Dodgers in the playoffs back in March? How many thought it was going to happen after the Yankees series in April? Some of y'all were jumping off a bridge thinking they were not going to make the playoffs. I mean, one of the worst teams in baseball. It was all smoke and mirrors the year before. Pat Murphy's not as good as we thought. People were losing their minds.
I think when you look at the way people talk about this Milwaukee Brewers team, I think they have the excitement game to game of that type of fan where you're sitting there thinking they can be a World Series contender. But overall, throughout the course of a season and long runs, they just always are beaten down by, again, everybody else on the outside telling them that this team is not a World Series contender. And I think when you are looking at what Pat Murphy does as a manager in some of his press conferences, they listen to him talk about that. And you complain about this all the time, him talking about them being like underdogs and not being there. I mean, that's part of the reason the fans feel that way too. And then when you have Mark Atanasio coming out here and making these types of comments, when he's out here at the trade deadline, not making a lot of moves like Q in the dugout is talking about over here. I mean, these are all really frustrating to the fan base, and it's hard to have that type of optimism that they have game to game.
Let's go to the dugout. Jeff has a comment on the dugout as well. What does Jeff have?
Jeff says, I don't ever expect Brewers to make the World Series because the teams making World Series are very high in salary like the Dodgers. They don't have the talent to beat those teams.
See, this is the thing where this is why a lot of the Brewers fan base is never going to buy into this being a World Series team until they actually see it. And that's why we talk about same old Brewers conversation on Friday was, are we back to being the same old Brewers? Yeah, we're good enough to get to the playoffs, but you're not good enough to get over the hump at that point. And that's, I think, what it feels like for a lot of people. That's why a lot of people, pretty much everyone, never picks them to go farther than to making it to the playoffs and going to a World Series. Greg and Waukesha, you're next on the Nicolay Law Talking text line here on Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's. What's up, Greg?
Hey, I never expected the Brewers to, make it past the playoffs. Craig Counsell is, I would think, I expected us not even to beat the Cubs. I think Craig Counsell is a better manager, than Pat Murphy. And then you bring on the Dodgers. Well, yeah, and it is about payroll, and it is about salary, and it is about, all of this other stuff that we are a small market team. Yet we did it in 82. So I guess what I'd like to know is, how did we do it in 82? I mean, I know the landscape was different. There wasn't as much money involved in 82, but how did we get there in 82, and how can we not, be there now? These Brewers just baffle me every year, Sparky, and I'm just glad to be on the new Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. So.
I'm glad to have you on it, Greg. I appreciate the call. Have a good rest of your day. I don't have an answer for you how they did in 82. What the landscape was like. I will say this. There weren't all the wild cards. There weren't all these divisions. There was East and West. That's what you had. What all these other obstacles to try and get through. It was much more difficult to make the playoffs. And then when you were there, it was pretty much win and go, right? You didn't have all this other stuff to get through like you do now in baseball. There was no interleague play. So you saw the same teams over and over and over again throughout the season. There wasn't as much free agency where teams were switching players nonstop all the time. Guys were spending a majority of their careers on one team. So what does that mean? That means pitchers are able to get a better idea of how to get guys out because they're going to see them every year, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years at a time. And there becomes that history of knowing your personnel. Now, again, I don't know if that's the biggest reason of how you got to the World Series that year at 82, but a lot of it was what? What did they have that this team don't have? Power, right? Bammies, bombers, all that other stuff. Now that was later, but again, Gorman Thomas, right? That's a lot of power. Cooper, that's a lot of power. You had guys that had some pop on that team. And then you had the guys that could get on base and do their thing, Robin Yount and those guys. So you had guys, Ted Simmons, another guy with a stick that had some pop to his bat as well.
I also feel like though you were seeing other teams around that era of baseball just not be hitting as much home runs.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to say that as a power team when nobody else is hitting.
They
power.
saw the speed demons of the Cardinals.
Right.
That's what that was, right? I mean,
speed and defense.
They had a couple power guys, but for the most part, that's what it was. So, yeah, I don't have an answer for you. I wish I did, but I don't have an answer. Coming up next, Ross Uglem, publisher of the Packer Report. Looking forward to talking to him. And don't forget, the only thing better than eating Wendy's is earning more Wendy's while I eat. Hello, Wendy's Rewards. The entire menu is up for grabs, too. Whatever food you order directly through the Wendy's app, Wendy's website, or at a restaurant counts. For every $1 you spend, you'll earn 10 points. You can place your order for pickup or delivery with the Wendy's app or website, and you're good. That's literally all you have to do. Mobile and website orders add reward points automatically. Done and done. It's the best. And so easy too. Folks, I'm telling you, you use the offer. Last night, I got $4 off of a $20 or more. And with the rewards, I got a free bacon cheeseburger. Not bacon cheeseburger, double stack.
That's a pretty good deal there.
That's a great deal. Yes, it's a great deal. All right, back after this with Ross Uglem. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome in, Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's. Sparky with you. Charlie using over there. Joining us now on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law. Ross Uglem, publisher of the Packer Report. Ross, thanks for coming on, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
I got to say, this is the first time I've had you on where we've been on in Green Bay and Appleton, WNFL 99.7 FM, Wausau 93.9 The Game, Duluth Superior 710 The Game. And of course, you've been on in Milwaukee in the past, but this whole Wisconsin Sports Radio Network thing, man, first time for you like this.
Absolutely, yeah. Excited to be on, running on about 4 hours of sleep, coming back from Arizona. But yeah, that's about it.
Was everybody in Arizona but me? I saw Jacob Westendorf was out there too. How many of y'all went up there?
Three of us: Jacob Morley, Jacob Westendorf, and myself.
Oh my Lord, Morley was with both of you. I can imagine what that was like.
Yeah, my folks live down there when it gets cold up here, so we had a place to stay, and we're able to all get credentialed and get into the game. So it was good. It was a good time, and certainly, highlighted by a positive fourth quarter and end of the football game.
Forget about all that. I didn't want to be a fly on the wall for the conversations between you three. That had to be highly entertaining. Okay, I want to get your thoughts on this Packers defense. And obviously, Micah Parsons has a huge day, which is great. 3 sacks, does his thing. Rashawn Gary shows up, gets the strip sack. That's fine. But the cornerbacks on this team coming into the season when they got Micah Parsons, it won't matter because they'll be getting pressure. They don't have to cover for as long. But this is becoming, I think, possibly a question mark around this defense going forward.
I don't think there's any question about it. And the worst, I think, aspect of, unfortunately, both outside corners is ball skills. You will often hear in defense of both players, well, they were in position. It was a perfect ball. Not much you can do there. Indefensible pass. And sometimes that's correct. I think as much as you might want to get on Nixon for the Jamar Chase touchdown a week ago, I don't know how easy it would be to, defend that play. But it keeps happening, and it keeps happening, and it keeps happening. And eventually you start to look at, career interception numbers from Nixon, career interception numbers from Hobbs, and you start to learn that they're just not very good at taking away the football. They're just not very good at getting their hands on the football at all. And when the real problems begin is when they stop limiting the opposition. Because, very, very rarely in this league now do you get a corner who not only shuts down the opposing receiver, but also takes the ball away. You have your corners that are really tough on receivers. And then you have your other archetype, like a Trayvon Diggs out of Dallas, where gets beat a lot, but might have 8 picks a year, might take 3 of those back to the house, and him getting beat a lot is just sort of part of it. When you have guys that don't take the ball away, they need to limit opposing receivers. They need to blanket opposing receivers. They need to knock the occasional pass away. Those types of things. When play after play and contested catch after contested catch is being won by the offense, it's a trend. It's no longer just like, oh, well, what a play.
Okay, Ross, let me ask you this, because we got to you late and we're up against, now we have network clocks. We have to be at hard outs, all this fun stuff. Now, so everything has changed in our world. We can't talk for like 30 minutes straight like you and I used to. Sure. Let me ask you this. What's happened to Xavier McKinney, playmaker, back there at safety?
No one's throwing at him. Why would you throw at him? When Green Bay plays quarters, which they play quite a bit, or thirds, the sideline, the deepest player on the sideline often is Hobbs and Nixon. So why would you not just throw back shoulder balls and go balls and jump balls at Hobbs and Nixon? Why would you even throw at Xavier McKinney? And they're not. So whatever happened to Xavier McKinney playmaker is, until these corners make the ball go somewhere else, there isn't going to be Xavier McKinney playmaker.
Lesson learned. Very nice. Ross Uglem, publisher of the Packer Report. Follow him on Twitter at Ross Uglem. I got one more for you. Jordan Morgan at guard. Your thoughts? And does he still end up at left tackle next year, do you think?
I do. I don't think that Sheed has played up to the level deserving of a contract extension, especially when you look at what left tackle contract extensions, even for slightly above average ones, look like right now. And there is no heir apparent to that left tackle position besides Jordan Morgan. You're also in a situation where you don't have a first round pick.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that, all good tackles or whatever are drafted in round one, but I think Belton is long-term as a guard, and if he's not, I think he's a right tackle.
Yep, I'm with you. I got to let you go there on that. There he is, Ross Uglem, publisher of the Packer Report. Follow him on Twitter at Ross Uglem. Got to cut him short because we have to get out here early, so my apologies. Next time we get him on, we got to get sure to get the break on time. I can have him on longer. So thanks to Russ Uglem for joining us there on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. Guest hotline powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Up next, Chris McIntosh penned a letter to all of us Badger fans. Are you buying what he's trying to sell it? Next.